Most men think promiscuous women are easy to spot. Loud, obvious, reckless. The kind of woman who walks into a room and announces danger before she ever speaks. But the women who hurt you the most, they rarely look dangerous. They look sweet, safe, familiar. They listen, they laugh, they feel normal. And that's exactly why you miss the signs, until your trust is already broken. Here's the mistake men make. They look for a single action, one dramatic red flag, one moment they can point to and say, that's it. But that's not how real damage happens. The danger is never in one behavior. It's in patterns, repeated signals that reveal something deeper: impulsivity, stimulation addiction, and avoidance of responsibility. This video is not about judging women. It's not about calling anyone bad. It's about psychology, behavioral consistency, and learning how to see patterns before you're emotionally invested. Because by the end of this video, you won't be guessing anymore. You'll have clarity. Let's start with the first sign, the one most men dismiss as just her past. Sign number one, she never takes responsibility for her past. On the surface, her stories sound reasonable. Every ex was toxic, controlling, emotionally unavailable, or just crazy. She was misunderstood. She was betrayed. She was treated unfairly. And maybe some of that is true. But listen carefully to how she tells those stories. There's always a villain, but never a lesson. She never says, I chose wrong, I ignored the signs, I stayed longer than I should have. Instead, the past is rewritten to protect a clean self-image. Psychologically, this is avoidance of accountability, not because she's evil, but because responsibility threatens her internal narrative. If everything that happened to her was someone else's fault, then nothing needs to change. And here's the insight you cannot ignore. If she can rewrite the past, she can rewrite the present. A woman who never owns her choices will never fully own the consequences of new ones. Watch the pattern. No reflection. No growth language, no responsibility, just emotional storytelling designed to position herself as the innocent victim. And men fall for it because empathy feels masculine. But empathy without discernment is how patterns repeat. Now let's move to the second sign. This one hides behind humor and nostalgia. Sign number 2. A history of one-night stands and impulsive intimacy. You'll hear phrases like, it just happened. I was wild back then. I was just having fun. And again, this is not about morality. It's about impulse control. Psychologically, impulsive intimacy is often driven by dopamine, not desire. It's stimulation seeking, escape from emptiness, a way to avoid sitting with deeper emotions. Here's what the pattern looks like. Connections form fast, intensity spikes quickly, and then it disappears. There's no process, no emotional pacing. Just moments, high highs, sudden exits. She doesn't talk about building, she talks about experiences. And the key insight here is simple. Impulsive intimacy is rarely about desire, it's about escape. A woman who uses intimacy to regulate her emotions will use it again when discomfort returns. And men misinterpret this as passion. They think she just connects deeply, she's spontaneous, she's free-spirited. But spontaneity without stability is chaos in disguise. Now pause for a second. Think back. Have you ever dated someone who connected intensely at first, only to detach just as fast? No warning, no explanation. Just distance. That wasn't mystery. That was pattern. And here's where this gets dangerous, because when you combine zero responsibility for the past with impulsive intimacy in the present, you don't get freedom. You get instability. In part 2, We're exposing the signs that show up after the honeymoon phase, the ones men ignore because everything still feels good. Fast choices, rapid cycling. Sex before emotional transparency. This is where most men lose clarity. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Which sign already feels familiar? Comment it. And if this is giving you clarity you didn't have before, hit like. Not for the algorithm, but because awareness changes outcomes. Now we move into the signs that appear after the initial attraction. This is where men get confused, because nothing feels wrong yet. She's still warm, still engaging, still exciting, but underneath the chemistry, the pattern is already forming. Sign number 3, she chooses men quickly and cycles through them just as fast. At first, this feels flattering. She commits fast, gets attached quickly, talks about connection early. You feel chosen. But psychologically, this is not depth. It's speed. She confuses excitement with connection. And excitement is easy to generate. Connection takes time. Here's the pattern. Her relationships last weeks, maybe months. They just didn't work out. Things fizzled. Circumstances changed. No slow builds, no long-term stability, just a chain of short emotional bursts. This usually signals one thing, an inability to tolerate emotional stillness. Stability feels boring. Consistency feels suffocating. So she chases intensity instead. And here's the insight men miss. A woman who chooses quickly usually leaves quickly. Because what she's choosing is not you. It's the feeling you give her in the moment. When the feeling fades, the bond goes with it. Now let's move to the next sign. This one often feels like passion. Sign number 4. Sexual intensity comes before emotional transparency. She opens sexually very early. Explicit talk, fantasies, stories, a sexual tone that shows up before you truly know each other. It feels exciting, disarming, intimate. But psychologically, this can be a bypass. Sex becomes a shortcut around trust. Instead of building emotional safety, she jumps straight into intensity. And here's why this matters. Sex clouds judgment. It bonds quickly. It accelerates attachment. And it makes men ignore inconsistencies. Watch the pattern carefully. Physical intimacy increases, but curiosity about you does not. She knows what you like sexually, but not what you value. Not how you think, not what you want long term. And that imbalance is not accidental. Here's the insight. When intimacy comes before compatibility, someone is hiding something. Not necessarily secrets, but emotional limits. Sex becomes the glue because deeper connection can't sustain itself. And men mistake chemistry for alignment. Now we go deeper. Sign number 5. Instant sex with no emotional pacing afterward. This is where impulse control reveals itself. She sleeps with you immediately. There's no build, no selection process, no emotional ramp. And again, this is not moral judgment. It's behavioral analysis. Impulse-driven people don't just act quickly, they move on quickly. Watch what happens next. After sex, the relationship doesn't deepen. There's no increase in emotional closeness, no clear direction, no progression. The connection stays flat. Sex becomes the only anchor. And here's the critical insight. If she didn't need time to choose you, she won't need time to leave you. Selection matters. People who choose carefully value what they choose. People who choose impulsively replace easily. Now let's connect this to validation. Sign number 6. She thrives on external validation. She'll say things like, I don't care what people think. But her behavior tells a different story. She lights up when attention enters the room. She needs to be seen, admired, desired. Social energy fuels her mood. Psychologically, her self-worth is externally regulated. She doesn't feel valuable. She needs to feel valued. And that's an important difference. Here's the pattern. Performative confidence, strong presence, but constant need for reassurance. Compliments matter more than connection. Attention matters more than intimacy. And here's the insight that cuts through illusion. A woman who lives for applause can't commit to one audience because commitment narrows attention, and narrowing attention feels like loss to someone addicted to validation. Men misinterpret this as confidence, as independence, as charisma. But validation addiction creates restless attachment. Now pause here. Look at how these signs connect. Fast choosing, fast cycling, sex before trust, impulse without pacing. External validation dependence. This is not randomness, it's a blueprint. Excitement over stability, feeling over structure, stimulation over consistency. And here's the danger. Men fall in love during the high, then get confused during the drop. They think something changed. Nothing did. The pattern just finished its cycle. In part 3, we expose the final signs, the ones men ignore because they feel minor. Provocative signaling, flirting for attention, phone secrecy. And then we reveal the twist, why no single sign matters, but repetition always does. Before we continue, check in with yourself. Which sign did you rationalize in the past? Comment it. And if this is connecting dots you didn't want to see before, hit like. Clarity is uncomfortable, but it's always cheaper than denial. Now we reach the signs men usually dismiss as small. Not dramatic, not explosive, easy to rationalize. And that's exactly why they matter the most. Because these are not accidents, they are signals. Sign number 7. Provocative style and social media as signaling. Let's be clear about something. This is not about how a woman dresses. It's not about control, and it's not about insecurity. It's about intentional signaling. A woman who consistently presents herself as sexually available to the public while claiming exclusivity in private is sending mixed messages. Psychologically, this reflects a marketplace mindset. She wants to be chosen, repeatedly, by many. Watch the pattern. Highly suggestive photos. Attention-focused captions. A social media presence that looks single. You exist in her real life, but barely in her digital one. And that's not accidental. Social media is identity projection. If her online image prioritizes attention over bonding, that tells you where her energy goes. Here's the insight you can't ignore. You can't project availability and claim exclusivity at the same time. Men often downplay this. They say, she's just confident, she likes attention, it doesn't mean anything. But signaling always means something. It reveals intention. Now let's move to the next sign. This one tests your boundaries directly. Sign number 8. She flirts for attention, even in front of you. Sometimes it's obvious, laughing too hard, touching, extended eye contact. Other times it's subtle, micro-flirting, playful tones, a shift in energy when another man enters. And then she watches you, not consciously, but instinctively. She's observing your tolerance. Here's the psychological mechanism. This is not about jealousy. It's about validation testing. She wants to know, how much will you accept? How far can she go? Will you stay silent to keep the peace? Men often tell themselves, I don't want to be controlling. I'm secure. I don't want to overreact. But here's the insight that cuts through the noise. She's not testing jealousy. She's testing tolerance. And tolerance teaches people what behavior costs nothing. If attention from other men energizes her more than your presence, you're not her anchor. You're her base. Now we reach the final sign, the one that confirms everything. Sign number 9, extreme firm secrecy. Let's separate two things. Privacy is healthy, secrecy is strategic. Privacy is calm, secrecy is tense. Watch the behavior. Phone always face down, notifications hidden, stepping away to answer calls, sudden mood shifts when messages arrive. And when you're near, tension, defensiveness, overreactions, jokes that deflect. Psychologically, this points to parallel lives. Not necessarily cheating, but option preservation. She's keeping doors open. And here's the key insight. A woman who protects her phone more than the relationship is protecting her options. Men often ignore this because confronting it risks clarity, and clarity threatens hope. Now let's bring everything together. Here's the twist most men never see. No single sign defines a woman. Not one-night stands, not social media, not flirtation, not secrecy, but repeated patterns do. Men don't lose because they meet the wrong woman. They lose because they see the pattern and hope they'll be the exception. They believe, she's different with me. She'll change. I just need to be patient. But patterns don't respond to patience. They repeat. Here's the full blueprint you've just seen. Impulsivity over stability. Validation over connection. Avoidance over responsibility. Different behaviors, same engine. And once you recognize the engine, you stop debating individual moments. You stop negotiating with yourself. Because the lesson isn't find perfection. The lesson is this: don't look for perfection. Look for consistency. Consistency in choices, consistency in pacing, consistency in accountability. And here's the actionable shift. Don't invest deeply until stability is visible. Observe behavior over time, not words, not intensity, not chemistry. And trust your intuition when the pattern is clear. Because intuition is not fear. It's pattern recognition your mind hasn't verbalized yet. Let me leave you with this. Attraction pulls you in, but awareness keeps you safe. And the strongest men aren't the ones who control women. They're the ones who control their investment. If this video gave you clarity, hit like. Comment below, which sign did you recognize too late? Subscribe if you value awareness over illusion. And share this with a man who's ignoring red flags right now. Because patterns don't disappear when you ignore them. They just repeat until you stop choosing them.